What's up, Paradigm? How are you guys this evening? Good? Man, it is so cool. The second we get used to something like this, I think we miss something. This many young adults in one room, worshiping the Lord together, was just awesome, wasn't it? It's so cool. But I know how a room like this works. You get some people who come every week and super dialed in and engaged, and then you have others of you who are, you just came because you're trying to date someone. And you brought someone and you're just trying to date the person that brought you, type deal. And then you got other people who's this is the first time you used to go to church and now you don't anymore. So you start to come back to Paradigm so you start coming on Tuesday nights. I get how it works. And then there's some of you in here are here for the first time. And welcome. But what I want to tell you tonight and what I want to encourage you to do is just to lean in. I believe that the message that we have tonight could really change some things in your life. And so wherever you are on that spectrum, just lean in, all right? My name is Jonathan Clark. I am a pastor, a young adult pastor here at Abundant Life. And I have the privilege of bringing you guys the word tonight. And so we're going to do that in Hosea chapter 1. Hosea chapter 1, we're going through a series the next 3 weeks on the book of Hosea. If you guys ready, say ready. So before I jump into the text, I got some intros to make. My wife, Sydney, and our 2 kids, we just moved a couple months ago, 3 months ago to be exact, to Kansas City. I think we have a picture of them here if we could show that. This is my crew. We got Eden, who's 3, Levi, who's 2. They were here for worship, but they can't make it through the message, just be honest. But I love them. They're so funny. They're hilarious. My son, Levi, I'm going to talk about him a little bit later, but he's hysterical, and my daughter is just so sweet. They're a perfect combo. I love being a dad. It's just awesome. But that relationship that I have with my kids pales into comparison to the relationship that I have with Sydney. And now that makes sense to us, right? Because I didn't choose my kids. My kids just came out, and I ended up with 2 kids, Eden and Levi. And Levi's Levi, and Eden's Eden. And I didn't choose them. I just fell in love when they came out. But the thing about my relationship with Sydney that's so special is that we made a commitment to some things. And we fell in love, and then we made a commitment. I have a picture tonight of our wedding day. It's one of my favorite pictures of our wedding day. I didn't even tell her that I was going to show her a picture of her, but I'm going to. This is a picture of our wedding day. This is my favorite part because this is when she's walking down the aisle, right? And she's so close. We're so close to making that like massive commitment. And I'm so nervous. I forgot that I had gum in my mouth. So I'm like, I don't believe that you can swallow. I believe that if you swallow it, it ends up in your stomach for like 7 years, so I couldn't swallow it. And so I have a gum in my mouth, and I'm trying to figure out where to hide it, and she's walking down the aisle, and I'm so excited, but like I feel the weight. It's sobering. As she's walking down the aisle towards me, she grabs my hand, I grab hers, we look each other in the eye, and I'm like, all right, here we go. And why is it sobering? It's because this marriage relationship is so acutely special. That when she was walking down the aisle, we knew that we liked each other. We knew that we were like excited about what we were doing, but what made it so sobering was 3 things. I was committing to her. I've never done this to anyone else, but marriage symbolizes these 3 commitments. Commitment number 1 is this. I was committing to give her priority for the rest of my life. No matter what, she was going to be the one that was the most important woman on this earth, important man or woman, to be quite frankly with you, on this earth that I was going to spend and make sure that she was number 1. And if things are good with her and we're good. And if things aren't good with her, then I can't show up here and do this. I can't engage with other people. I'm just like agitated and angry. But when things between her and I are good, we can roll. And so it's priority. I was committing to priority. Intimacy is the second one. Marriage is so special because you're committing to an intimacy that is incomparable. This level of intimacy that I'm showing up and I'm opening up my life for her so that she can know me and I can know her. In a different level than we've ever experienced. That commitment to being intimate. And then the last one is influence. So I'd love to say this wasn't true, but it is. Anything that Sydney says to me is going to hurt a little bit more, is going to mean a little bit more, is going to influence me a little bit more. Because when I showed up to that altar and she walked down and she had that sweet, beautiful crying face, and I just looked ugly, so I didn't show a picture of myself. But when she walked down that aisle and held my hands, I was committing to allow her to have influence over my life for the rest of my life. And so if I walk down this stage and someone compliments me and says, you're the nicest person ever, and then I get home, and if Sydney were to say that, if she was going to say that, I'll buy into what she said. But if she said it, that meant she knows when I'm hypocritical. She knows when I'm lying through my teeth. She knows when I'm being fake. But the fact that I can give her influence, committing to giving her influence for the rest of my life, those three things define a marriage relationship. And what's so profound about a marriage relationship is that in the book of Hosea, God portrays his love for us through a marriage. And so priority, intimacy, influence, that's the picture and that's the portrait that God portrays. And I love that because marriage is timeless. In a book that was written over 2,500 years ago, we're still talking about the same relationship, and I'm feeling the weight of the relationship and the commitment that I made to Sydney when we got together on that September 24th, 2017. Fact check me. Yeah, that's right? And so that day I made a commitment that was so sincere and so important, but God made the same image applicable to us in Hosea, the book of Hosea here. So we're going to start. Hosea chapter 1. If you guys are still looking for Hosea, it's after Daniel, and if you're doing one of those shifting around trying to find it, it's near halfway, but if you shift a little bit towards the New Testament, you should land there. I hope you found it by now. Hosea chapter 1, verse 1. The word of the Lord that came to Hosea, the son of Beeri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, in the days of Jeroboam, the son of Joash, the king of Israel. Now, how many of you watch Netflix in this room? Just show hands. Okay, so how many of you binge Netflix in this room? My Netflix bingers get what I'm talking about. When that skip intro button, you know what I'm talking about? Who's pressing that super fast? I never miss that skip intro button. I'm like, skip the intro. Where's the remote? It's a competition, because if it disappears, you stuck. But we can't skip the intro here, because to skip the intro is to skip a whole lot of context. The setting is so important for the book of Hosea. It's remarkable. The setting in the book of Hosea is this. We've heard of King David before. King David, if you're familiar with church, he's the guy who took out Goliath. He became king over Israel, a man after God's own heart. God loved him. He had a son. His son, whose name was Solomon. Solomon became super rich and super wise, and he squandered what he had. And he squandered what God gave him and didn't hold true to the God that led them out of Egypt and into the promised land. And so after Solomon had two sons, and they fought over the kingdom until it divided. And so the nation of Israel was divided into two different nations at this point. It was divided and it became weak. And the northern kingdom was Israel, and the southern kingdom was called Judah. And so the northern kingdom was led by a king named Jeroboam. The southern kingdom was led by a king named Rehoboam. And they were brothers. But they didn't get along. And so they separated the nation. And they became weak, but super affluent. And they still had a ton of resources. They were super dependent on all the other nations around them, including Assyria, which is a military powerhouse. And so they're sitting there with all this money and thinking everything's great, but it wasn't great. And they weren't chasing after God. They were chasing after whatever they wanted, which is typically what happens when we have a lot of resources and a lot of insecurity. When we're insecure and we lack resources, what happens? We chase after whatever we can do to find security. That's the moment in which Hosea is prophesying. God sent the man, a prophet, Hosea. A prophet is just a man who speaks for God, on behalf of God, for the people, to the people. And God sent Hosea into a time in which this nation was divided and insecure. And when they were insecure, they were chasing everything they could possibly find. So that's the setting that we see in here. So when it says Jeroboam, the son of Joash, he was the king of Israel. Jeroboam, there's a couple kings in between Jeroboam and Jeroboam II, which is the king that we're talking about here. But that's the state that Hosea was sent in. And it was only a few years after the time of Hosea came that ultimately the nation of Israel got overthrown by the Assyrians. So they're like on the verge of like things falling apart, things not going well. And so that's our setting. But we have to talk about the prophet because it's introducing Hosea here as well. Hosea is a man who is totally set apart. He lived in a culture in which everything went and they chased after whatever they want, but that wasn't Hosea's MO. Hosea's was so set on what God wanted to do and where God was leading. He was so sensitive to that call that he refused to follow others. He refused to follow the culture. And so he fought, and he believed that God wanted to do something more through the nation of Israel than they had seen yet. Psychologists call, there's a phase that we go through in adolescence, the last phase we go through. It's called messianic thinking. And I know what you think. You get out of college, you think you got things squared away. I did. I got out of college, I'm like, man, I'm going to change the world. That's what messianic thinking is. I'm going to change the world. I got this education now. I'm rolling. I'm going to make some money. I'm going to have a big stack. And I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do whatever I can to change the world. And I was so excited, and then I got my first job, and I was sitting in this basement of this tech company. I didn't see the light of sun for like ever, especially in Chicago. It's dark early, dark late, dark. And so through winter, I literally never saw the sun. I'm working in this basement of some tech company. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing anything. And I became, what happened, cynical. And so I lost that messianic thinking. Everyone's got to at some point. You got to lose that muster and excitement. I was so excited to do something, but I couldn't do anything really on my own. Hosea wasn't that. He had that muster, that energy, the excitement. But what Hosea had that we often don't is this other piece. It's this idea that I have so much energy and zeal for what God wants to do. But Hosea had something else. He had this, but I know the God who can do it, and so I'm going to tether my ship to his. And so we get cynical, and the devil lures us into lukewarmity and making us think that we're not going to make an impact, and we can't make an impact, and we can't make a change. There's a reason why I said it's so cool that we have so many young adults in this room this evening. It's because what age group is more prone to cynicism than the one that we're in? We're so prone to be cynical the second we get out of college or the second we're in college and realize, man, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. I actually have to make money and provide for and feed myself, and there's so many bills, and now I'm paying for a car. I'm like, I didn't even have to pay for a car. I have to pay for food? What? I can't have all the snacks I want? I had a professor in college. I went to a Christian university, and this professor, every single time I saw him, he had some unbelievable story about how God was moving. So much so, he's the type of guy who literally had stayed in C.S. Lewis's house. And if you don't know who C.S. Lewis is, just hang around for long enough, you'll hear him in a sermon, because he's got that Christian powerhouse type deal, and he's incredible. But anyway, this guy, the professor that I had in school, every single time I saw him, I thought he was like on the front lines of what God was doing, because he was just so faith-filled and engaged. Hosea had both things. Hosea had the desire to see God move and refused to believe he wouldn't, and had the faith to back it up. That's Hosea. Hosea was so set apart, so just consecrated for the mission of God and the work of God that God wanted to move. That distinguished him from the nation, and that made him usable by God. But that's not the only thing that distinguishes Hosea. Hosea's name should sound familiar. It sounds familiar to the people at this time anyway. Hosea is his name in Hebrew. Hosea was Joshua's name. Joshua came after Moses. Joshua's name was Hosea. But when Moses called Joshua to the task, he changed his name and made it Yeshua, meaning God is salvation. Hosea's name, Hosea, means salvation. So where Joshua was called to communicate a message, Hosea was called to be the message. Joshua was called to communicate something. God is salvation. Hosea was called to be the message. Don't just go talk about my salvation. Be the salvation. Be the work that I'm trying to show these people who I am and what I'm about. That was Hosea. That's his name. And then we learn a lot about him secondarily in this second verse here. Verse 2, it says, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea. Did you catch that? When the Lord first spoke through Hosea, he spoke to. In order to speak through Hosea, all God had to do was speak to him. If I outsourced my role as a dad to my kids, and I said, hey, Miles, can you speak to my kids on my behalf? Do you think I would do that? Maybe. But do I trust him? It's all a matter of trust. Do I trust Miles enough to communicate my message to my kids? Do I trust him enough? That's what God's saying. God's saying about Hosea is, I trust Hosea because he's so set apart and he's so set to do what I call him to do no matter what. That God spoke through Hosea by speaking to him. Am I being clear? That's all he had to do. He just spoke, I speak 2 miles and I know the message is going straight to my kids. That's unbelievable. Hosea is so set apart, so distinguished, so working on God's behalf. And so my first point is this. In our text tonight, God is Hosea. What do I mean by that? That the relationship that God has with the people of Israel, God wanted to communicate through Hosea. And God represented himself through Hosea. God chose that man to be Hosea. Let's keep going in the text. Verse 2, we'll start again. When the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord spoke to Hosea, or said to Hosea, "Go, take to yourself a wife of whoredom and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord." Now, this word whoredom is said so many times in one verse. It's unbelievable. Whoredom means prostitute. And this idea has been debated, prostitute, or it's just a promiscuous woman. Tonight, I'm making the assumption that it's prostitute, primarily because that's ultimately what she ends up running to, the woman he ends up marrying. And so I'm calling this woman a prostitute. When he marries her, he's marrying a prostitute. He's called to marry a prostitute. That's not the only thing I'm going to say because I got to make some disclaimers here. The other disclaimer is, this is descriptive, not prescriptive, meaning don't think that God's calling Hosea to go marry a prostitute. That's telling you, hey, maybe I can go marry whoever I want. That's not the deal. We ain't calling people to missionary date here tonight. It is descriptive. We're not prescribing something. It's just describing what happens. Clear? The last point I'll make is this. Prostitution isn't something that just existed way back then. It exists today. And I'm sure in a room this size, there's some of you who have engaged with prostitution to some degree. And I want you to hear that we're not selling shame here. We're not selling any of that. You are not defined by what you've done. You are not defined by your past. You are not defined by who you've become. But I want to be very clear. God loves you, and he wants your heart, despite what you've done. It's not too far. You haven't gone too far. You're not gone far enough. With the power that God called Hosea to, I just can't imagine. He says, go. Take for yourself a wife of whoredom or a prostitute. And so what does Hosea do? Instantly, he's like, what? I have to go marry what? Can I just invite her to Paradigm? Can I just bring her to church? Can I just give her the gospel bridge? Can I just have a spiritual conversation with her? Anything, please. And God's like, no, I want you to go marry her. And he had to go, right? He had to leave his house. And at this point, Hosea is like, well, where do I find a prostitute? And so he's going to neighborhoods that he's never been to before. He's getting weird looks. And he's like looking around. He's getting really weird looks now. It's a place that a prophet doesn't go, and he's a little nervous for himself, and he's looking. And then he walks down an alley, and he's like, well, and he walks up to a guy you can imagine, and he's like, hey, well, do you know where I can find a prostitute? And the guy goes, yeah, keep walking. There's one right down there. And so he's walking up, and he's so nervous, and you can imagine he's sweating. And his heart's beating super fast because he's not just like doing something basic. It's a proposal in the red light district. And so he's walking, and he sees her, and he gets closer to her and closer, and she starts to realize he's walking up too. And so she's starting to get like, either this guy wants to have sex with me, or he's coming to condemn me for the life I've been living. And either way, her defenses are up. And so she kind of just turns away a little bit because you can just see it all. And Hosea's walking up and he knows this is the one. And so he gets closer and closer. And now she can't ignore him, right? She can't ignore it at all. He's too close. He's too close for comfort, and he reaches out and grabs her hand. And you can feel it, right? Her cold hand feels weak. And Hosea grabs her hand and says, "What's your name?" And she says, "Gomer." And Hosea thinks to himself, man, that's a bummer of a name. It's a real bummer. Like, come on, God. And she says, "What's your name?" And he said, "My name's Hosea." And she knows in her mind, well, what your name is salvation. Who are you saving? And before she can have that thought in her head, you know what Hosea says? He says, "Will you be my wife?" Now, this wasn't some just transactional statement. This wasn't just, hey, I want you to be one of my concubines. I'm just going to buy you and have you a piece of property. No. God didn't call him just to go get someone and then buy them. God called him to what? Make him a wife. And not only find a wife, but have children, start a family, build a family lineage with a prostitute. It's not some emotionally detached relationship. It's super engaged. It's not just, I'm just going to go purchase a piece of property. It's so engaged. He's marrying the whole person. He's not just marrying part of Gomer. He's marrying the whole person. So when he showed up and said, "Will you marry me?" He's saying, all of you, this whole thing that you are. And he's looking at her, and she's got matted hair. And she kind of smells like a man that she's been with earlier that day. And you could just hear Hosea's voice in his heart, and he's like, "Why, God?" But when he said, will you be my wife?" He's saying, everything that you are is now mine. All that pain that you've experienced is now mine. All that trauma that you've been through is now mine. All that sleep apnea that you have because you haven't slept in a night in over a year because you've been prostituting at night and you just sleep during the day, all that's now mine. All your body image issues are now mine. All your pain, all your brokenness, all your insecurity, all your inability to communicate effectively, all your inability to commit is now mine. He took all of Hosea and made her mine. All that anxiety, all that depression, all that fear that it wasn't going to work out and fear that it wasn't going to be enough. He took all of that and made her mine. Now, I love this story because we get such a beautiful picture of who Hosea is. But we already know based on point one who Hosea is. The problem is, who's Gomer? Gomer's me, and Gomer's you. But I hate believing that because I ain't that bad, you know what I'm saying? I haven't prostituted before. I don't have some crazy hairy testimony. I'm not a prostitute. In fact, I'm a pastor. That's the furthest thing from a prostitute. I could find myself in Hosea's camp if I stretch the gear in, right? But I questioned myself as I was reading this. I was like, well, God, if you're Hosea, I don't think I can fit the Hosea mold. That means there's only one character left, unfortunately, and that's Gomer. But I can't be that bad, I thought to myself. And so I went and did some research. I don't recommend doing this research as a new employee at a church on a church laptop, but I did it. Psychology, emotional challenges, and psychological challenges that plague prostitutes. Here's number one. You guys ready? Number one is this. Depression. Number two, excessive anxiety. Number three, social withdrawal. Number four, decreased honest emotional expression. I looked at that list and I'm like, dang it. Depression. I sold myself out to thinking I was going to be happy in my career and achieve in my career, and what did I end up with? Depression. I sold myself to the idea that I could have control during my dad's cancer, and what did I end up with? Excessive anxiety. I sold myself to the desire to be perfect and make my life perfect and make myself perfect and appear perfect and ultimately only to find myself, goodness gracious, it was too applicable. I socially withdrew. And then I found myself in the decreased, honest, emotional expression because I sold myself to thinking that I was better than people and that I was more valuable and worthy. And I found myself checking all those boxes. And the point is that I'm checking the boxes tonight, but I also want to lead you to check the boxes. And I know that's hard because I'm showing up, I'm the new guy, and I got skinny jeans on, and I don't have any cowboy boots on tonight because we don't wear those kind of boots in Chicago. But I know mentally, a few of you in here, a majority of us in here right now are thinking this. Okay, I know the picture he's trying to paint me, but I'm going to mentally exit. I'm going to mentally exit out that, but I'm a good person. Door. Don't go. I'm literally pleading with you, don't leave. And I'm not talking just walking out the door, because now you can't, even if you have to go to the bathroom. But don't leave mentally. Don't leave with this lie thinking that I'm good and so that's good enough. Because it's not. And that idea is illogical. I'm going to prove it to you. Say, for example, and this is a good example because it's based on truth. I grew up in a wonderful home, and my parents took such good care of me, and they trained me to know how to grow up to be a man and to walk in integrity and to take responsibility and to be honest and to do all of the things that it took to be a good person. I was raised to know how to do that, right? And they gave me everything I could need. They literally birthed me and took care of me when I was young and raised me through all the way through college. They gave me everything I needed. And so I get to stand here today, and I'm like so blessed and so thankful that they did that. But then I leave, let's just say, for example, I leave, and I never talk to them again. And so now the people that have given me everything and given me all that I've gotten up to this point, and I leave my house after school, and I go live my own life, and I write them Christmas cards on Christmas, and that's it. That's the extent of the relationship I have. How many of you in here would say that's an acceptable response to the way that my parents have raised me? I didn't see any hands raised, so I'm going to assume that's a no. It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Why? Because good behavior means nothing apart from relationship with the one who gave me so much. And when we think we can get by just being good without the relationship of the one who made us and called us by name, it's not good enough. The relationship is so much more important than pulling up your bootstraps and being good enough. You're not good enough. You will never be good enough. The standard is too high. The bar has been set way too high. And for you to walk out of here assuming that you're good enough is to miss the point. You're the prostitute. I'm the prostitute. Point number 2, we are Gomer. We take good things, a good thing that God has given us, and what do? We sell it out to our passions. And what definition is that? That's prostitution. We take our eyes, good things that God has given to us, and we sell it to whatever we want to look at, to whatever we want to enjoy, and depart from the relationship and take advantage of what God has given us and take advantage of it and use it for our own ego, for our own obsession, and we take our hands and we use them to please ourselves and please whatever we want and to look at whatever we want and to do whatever we want and to make money however we want. We prostitute ourselves. We are the prostitute. Let's get back into the text. Verse 3. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. And the Lord said to him, call his name Jezreel, for in just a little while I will punish the house of Jehu for the blood of Jezreel, and I will put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. And on that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. So they had a kid. This is incredible. They had a little baby boy. And the baby boy came out, and God called him to name him Jezreel. Jezreel means God sows. This idea that God sent a son in between Hosea and Gomer and had him name meaning God sows, which really means judgment is coming or there's consequences for the actions. But that's not a bad name. The fact that God sent Jezreel to communicate, hey, my judgment is coming and consequences are coming, is a sign of a loving father saying, hey, the light is going off. We got a problem. Here's your first son. Communicate this through your first son. And so Hosea is walking around with little Jezreel. And I think about my son Levi. He's in a weird stage right now where he just, he takes off his clothes all the time. But particularly when he's in his bed. And not when he's sleeping. He just takes everything off. And he doesn't only just take everything off. He started to use his bed as a urinal. And so the idea that he started to use his bed as this urinal situation, I'm like, this is not cool. And if I just let him continue on in this pattern, I'm going to have to explain to his wife, God willing, someday, hey. Actually, you know what? No. He's going to have to explain to his wife someday why he thought the bottom right corner of his bed was a good spot to just let it rip. If I don't have consequences for the way Levi behaves now, what happens? He keeps doing it, and it's a funny example because he's 2, and we grow up and really realize maybe we shouldn't do that, but we're younger than we think, yo. And just because Levi pees in his bed, and if he doesn't get consequences, what happens? He keeps doing it. And so God's sending a son. I give Levi consequences because it's not because I don't love. I love him so much that I don't want him, and I love our washing machine, but I love him so much that I don't want him to think that that's okay. It's not okay. Stop peeing in the bed, or there's going to be consequences for your actions. And the same narrative is true. God sent Jezreel because Jezreel is a way to communicate this idea that God cares. Isaiah 29:9-10 says this. For when your judgments are in the earth, the inhabitants of the world learn righteousness. If favor is shown to the wicked, he does not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness, he deals corruptly and does not see the majesty of the Lord. Jezreel is a sign. Teach the people righteousness because I care. But we finish our story here. We think, man, that's a fairy tale ending. This ain't going bad. I got a cute little boy now, and my wife, Gomer, she's. It seems like things are looking up, right? And my fear is that this is how every Christian starts. God saved me from prostitution, and here I am, and now I'm on the straight and narrow, and I'm going after the thing that God calls me to be, and I'm being the wife that Gomer is, and Hosea is being a sweet husband, and we have this cute little boy. But that's not the end of the story here. Verse 6, she conceived again and bore a daughter. Did you catch that? In verse 3 it says, she conceived and bore him a son. But in verse 6 it says, she conceived again and bore a daughter. She cheated on him. And the Lord said to him, call her name No Mercy, for I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel to forgive them at all. But I will have mercy on the house of Judah, and I will save them by the Lord their God. I will not save them by bow or by sword or by war or by horses or by horsemen. She cheated on him. He rescued her out of prostitution. And what did she do? Little by little, day by day, she fed the craving that so many of us in here do too. This is how sin works. She didn't walk out the door after kissing Hosea and saying, hey, I love you so much. This is so amazing. Our marriage is so amazing. This is so great. And walk out the back door and just, oh my goodness, I fell onto another man and I got pregnant. That's not how it works, is it? We know this. Day by day, she started to entertain the idea that maybe there was something I liked about prostitution, and maybe if I go back. And so she did. And she probably came home and she's like, at this point, she's like, oh my gosh, now he's taking care of his own son, and now he has this daughter that's not his, but he's gonna be taken care of too. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. I'm sorry. I'm gonna straighten up my act. I'm gonna get back in church every week, and I'm gonna start reading my Bible, and I'm gonna start coming to Paradigm with my friends because I feel like that's what I gotta do to get it back. And she straightens up her behavior, and she acts like she's got it all together, and she's getting it back. I'm getting this thing back on track. I know I made a big mistake, and here I go. I'm gonna make my way back. I'm gonna earn my stripes back. I'm going to get my husband back. He rescued me once, and now I cheated on him, and I'm in the hole, and I'm going to be able to work my way back up. Am I going to be able to do that? I'm not sure, but I'm going to try. I'm going to try really hard. And then we read in verse 8, when she had weaned no mercy, she conceived and bore a son. It wasn't bore him a son. It was bore a son. Uh-oh. She cheated on him again. And the Lord said, call his name not my people, for you are not my people. She's pregnant again. She cheated again. She fell into being the person that she thought she was done being. She cheated again. That's a picture of us spiritually. Are you seeing that? We go off and we get pregnant with our illegitimate love towards things that aren't real, things that won't last. And we get pregnant with illegitimate children, and we have illegitimate offspring because we chase whatever we want, and we chase our desires. James 1:13-15 says this, let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it is conceived, gives birth to sin. And sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. Desire being conceived. And that baby, that illegitimate baby, grows in us. We take something good that God made us to work. He made us to work, but we sell ourselves to our work. He gave us the ability to love, but we're pregnant with a porn addiction. He made us with all these gifts, but we upsell ourselves as better than other people. What are you pregnant with tonight? What have you chased down outside of your own household? Have you left the kids that God's given you and the faithfulness that he's had on you and chased down illegitimate lovers to produce illegitimate offspring? I have. It's only a matter of time before it starts showing. I remember when Sydney got pregnant, it was so awesome. The experience is so amazing. Sydney got pregnant and her belly starts to get a little bigger over time, and then we start to feel Eden kick or Levi kick, and it was so cool, and we were so excited because one, I was like, what do you think they're going to look like? And then you get the images back of what they look like in the womb, and you're like, oh no, it's not good, it's not good. And then Levi came out, and I was like, oh, this might not still be good. He turned out to be super cute, so praise God. But when he came out first, anyway, we were so excited. I'm getting off track. We were so excited. But Hosea's sitting there with a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And she walks in the door again, and she's pregnant. You can see it in Hosea's eyes. She walks in the door, and we're not told how the interaction worked, but it works something like this. You can envision it, right? She walks in the door, and Hosea hears her say that, and he's like, and tears start rolling down his cheeks. And he's like, God, why? Why did you lead me to this? And you can see his prayer journal just drips with tears down his cheeks. God, what have you done? I thought we were doing something. And now I want to kill her. I can't even look her in the eye. And in that moment, Hosea remembers who he's supposed to be and who God called him to be. I'm here to proclaim your message. Abounding in steadfast love, slow to anger. In his hands, or in his head. He's like, God, I know who you've called me to be, but it's hard. She's cheated on me. What do I do? And God says, go to my temple and proclaim the prophecy that I've told you to proclaim it. And so what does Hosea do? With the same level of priority, intimacy, and influence, he walks back to the temple with tears in his eyes. My family's a mess. My life's a joke. My prophetical message is hopeless. And he walks back into the temple, and God gives him this last point. Verse 10, it says, yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. Listen to this. Hosea got to say, it shall be said to them, children of the living God. And the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint for themselves one head, and they shall go up from the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. God reaches down, and through Hosea, he communicates something so powerful that I can't let you miss tonight. He redeems those illegitimate children. No mercy, not my people. He calls children my kids. Those are my kids. And so I don't know what you've walked in here tonight with. I don't know how many kids are running around your house that are illegitimate, that God never wanted for you. But the image in this story here, do you remember Hosea's name and what it meant? Hosea meant salvation, but we never talked about Gomer's name. Gomer's name means completion. Hosea and Gomer is salvation complete. It's not about the kids that you produce. It's about that marriage, yo. And we have a God, and we serve a God who loves us and is so faithful. So faithful. And I saved the title of the sermon till the end because it's the last point. God is so faithful. God reaches in, and when Hosea's tears are still pouring out of his eyes because of the things that Gomer has run off and done behind his back while he was sitting with some poopy diapers in his lap and crying babies and sleepless nights because there's so little still. The marriage is the message. And maybe you've come in here tonight and you're like, I don't even know what he's talking about. That's reckless. What kind of God would do that? What kind of God would use an image of a marriage to represent his relationship with me? It's the God that we worship. If you bow your head, I'm going to close, but I'm going to ask 3 questions. Question number 1 is this. Is the God that you believe in the God that Hosea represented? Is that your God? Is that your God? The God who walked into the brothel and saw you and looked you in the eye and held your hand and asked you what your name was and then said his name and spoke his name over you, is that your God? Awesome, set apart, unbelievable, faithful, consistent, never failing, never running, never turning aside, never raising the bar too high for you to reach. Is that your God? Question number 2 is this. Do you see yourself in Gomer? We didn't make any progress tonight if we don't see ourselves in Gomer. Depressed, anxious, selling ourselves out for whatever we want to sell ourselves out for, to get whatever we want, to hold the addiction that we want to have, and to keep the thing and hold the baby in our belly. We're going to deliver the baby. Do you see yourself in Gomer? And question number 3 is this. Do you need a faithful Hosea? I don't know where you're at tonight, but God is saying, I want your priority because I've given you mine. I want your intimacy because I've given you myself. And I want to influence you because I know I made you and I know what's best for you. Dear God, I'm so thankful that you've given us a prophet in the picture of Hosea, that you won't leave us when we come home conceiving another man's daughter and another man's son. I'm so thankful that you're here now. And God, I pray that you wouldn't allow us to leave without feeling the weight of your faithfulness. That's what faithfulness looks like. It's wrapped up in Hosea. And so God, I pray that as we sing this song, Refiner, will we be consumed by your love and your faithfulness toward us, that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Amen. Amen.